Team, welcome back to Live Perform Compete podcast. Repeat guest today, Sara Sigmunsdottir. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. And I mean, I'm looking at my list of things to talk about here, and it's long and extensive. We should probably start with what we talked about last time you were on the podcast, which was basically kind of thinking about the season ahead, which was 2021, and all the things you want to achieve, and obviously a bit of your backstory and life story. And who'd have known that you were going to have the year that you have had? I think probably no one in the world would have thought we were going to have the year that we had based on when we last talked, but I think you've especially had quite the year, and lots of things happened. So perhaps that's where we start. What has happened since we last caught up?
So much has happened. So it's been a pretty rough year. I tore my ACL. I lost my baby, my puppy, and I've been stuck in Iceland because of COVID now for almost 1.5 years. So it's been a weird year. I'll admit that, but I think that everybody experiences like a point in their life where they just have to deal what happens, and you grow so much from it. And I already feel that there's so much changed in my mind and in my body just for the last year, and how I look at things especially.
So 3 things. Obviously a massive one was the ACL, which I think the whole world probably found about because it was pretty close to the seasonal kicking off, and
it was 2 days before the Open, the qualifier for everything. So it was a shock.
And then of course, your dog Molly, who and I'm sure all social media followers know a lot about. And I think kind of like looking at your page recently, there was a silence. There was probably a week or 2 where Sara kind of disappeared for a little bit. And then, you've come back with the news and kind of, I think, done an amazing job at kind of sharing the process of how you've grieved and how much of a loss it was. And I think I just want to say that was really commendable. And I could feel how heartfelt it all was and how hard of a time it must have been.
It was very hard,
And then, when we talked last time, I think you were gearing up to potentially make a move to the States and join up with the team at Train Think Tank. And here you are, still in exactly the same house that we spoke last time in Iceland.
Yeah, exactly same spot and everything,
Although you do have that map on the back wall, wasn't there last time?
Yeah. Wasn't it?
No? Is that the one that is that the one where you scratch off when you've been to a place? Yeah, I got one of those for my birthday. I don't know what I did with it. As soon as I saw it, I was like,
you hang it up. So next time we have a talk, you'll have yours in the background also.
Yeah, that big old bare space needs something.
Yeah, it's meant to be. And you have to scratch Iceland off, right?
Well, hey, one day, eventually.
Yeah, one day. Yeah.
That's what I said. I said last time we spoke, I said in the year I'll be in Iceland. That didn't happen either.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so you're definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think where I'd like to start, Sara, is to hear about the ACL.
The ACL, So
what happened?
Yeah, I had just so I started working with Training Think Tank after the CrossFit Games, and I'm working with Max there as my coach. And we had been just on a pretty good roll, and things are all coming along. And then I had an awesome training day, the 9th of March, and I was split jerking weight that I hadn't split jerked for such a long time, and just felt good. And I was training with my friend, and I was like, "Hey, can you film this for me? Like, I wanna see how it looks because it was feeling so good." So he films it, and I'm like going into the dip, and I just hear like a crack or something, and I was just like, "Did you hear that?" Like, I just dropped the bar, and I was like, "Did you hear that?" Or was it just super loud for me? He was like, "I heard it." So he actually heard the ACL tear, but I thought because it wasn't that painful, because the movement is just like you're jumping like into a split instead of like there's no rotation or anything. So I was like, can't be torn ACL because there was no rotation in this, and it's just swollen. I'm just overthinking this because Open is after 2 days, and I'm just stressing about that and blah blah blah. So I was just already, I had these excuses of like why I was overthinking this. And then like always when you feel a little bit like pain somewhere, you start testing it a lot, or at least I do that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to do burpees. And I jump back and I was just like, my leg is like spaghetti, like cooked spaghetti. It was just like so loose. And I was like, okay, called the physio. And he's like, okay, this could be an ACL, but this could also just be if the knee swells a lot, like you lose control of some like muscles that can stabilize the knee. I was like, okay, it's just that. So I call a doctor the next day and I'm like, hey, the qualifier for the open is after 2 days. I think I need anti-inflammatory to be able to compete. I would like to do the workout on Monday, and if I take 3 days now, a course of like taking all the swelling out, it might work. And he's like, I want to see you first before I subscribe something. I was like, okay, deal. I'll come as soon as you let me. And he's like, just come now. I was like, okay, nice. So I go over and I'm just like, I'm just overthinking this. And he says, sit on the bench. And then he starts doing the test, and he does the ACL test just in case. And like, he had a mask on and he just looked at me and he was just like, you're not in good stat, or like, you're in a bad place, girl. And I was like, what do you mean? Tell me everything. Like, what's happening? Is this serious? Like, can I, like, you have to tell me more. Yeah. And he was just like, he was in as much of a shock as me because, yeah, it wasn't painful. That was the weirdest thing. And usually ACL tear is super painful. I mean, my pain threshold is so high, you know. Really? No, I was just lucky. That's what I'm thinking. And yeah, so he was like, it's yeah, you have a torn ACL. And I was like, 100%. Do I not have to like go to a scan first? He's like, I would say 98%. And I was like, so there's still 2%. So I was like, okay, I got this. So I just went home and I was just like, okay, I wrote down like on paper, like if my ACL is torn, then like, so if my ACL is not torn, like what am I gonna do if it's torn, or if I turn it up, or if it's still if it's not torn but my knee is always swelling up, what can I do there? So I didn't have a scan until 3 days later, and those were the longest 3 days of my life. And I'm very close to my manager, and I go to his office to study there. And so I was calling him a lot during the day. So I was like, Snorri, I was able to do this today, so it's not torn. I wouldn't be able to do this if it was torn. And I was always like in so much battle with my head of like, it's not, yes it is, it's not, yes it is. And then I get out of the scan and he's like, as you know, your ACL is torn. And I was like, oh, damn it. It's fucking 2%. So I had the list there, like, okay, what am I going to do now? What's my next step? How do I deal with this? So I already had a plan in mind, because I just work like that. If I don't see something ahead, I just go into a deep depression and like, yeah, like, there's no meaning with anything, and I've just never been like that. I just always find a solution to everything.
Okay, so I feel like as you were telling that story, I was thinking about when I tore my ACL, which was 2009, and yeah. Actually, it's really funny hearing you talk about it, because I was almost, as you were describing the story there, I was almost predicting what you were going to do next, because I did exactly the same thing. Yeah. So I think, you know, when it first happens, there's that like denial phase.
Yeah.
You're like, nah, didn't happen. And I'm like, and for me, you know, you had your version, but for me, I was like, it's definitely my MCL, because I had a couple of my teammates who just had MCL tears, and, you know, they were out for a couple of weeks and they were back. And so I was obviously straight away, I was like, what was it like when you did your MCL? They were like, oh, it was a little loose. And I'm like, oh yeah, exactly the same as mine. And I was like, oh, you know, like, it feels like it's hyperextending a bit. They're like, not really. Oh no, okay, definitely MCL. And then so, you know, the whole week, exactly when you're talking about like you were testing it, obviously you go onto Google straight away and you're like, what can I do? What can't I do with an ACL? How do I know? and then you start getting hunches thinking, maybe this could be like, no.
Then you get the fear, like, fuck, this is exactly what I'm experiencing.
But then you bat away that fear. You're like, no, fuck that. This is not.
Nah, it can't be. Then you start proving yourself wrong. Like, that's what I did. I was like, can I bike now? Can I do this? And I was like, yeah, I can. Like,
yeah.
So,
But you did something very different to me, which I'm going to get to in a second. So my mindset was, I'm going to just, until I hear it, until I know crystal clear that I've done my ACL, I'm going to live my life as if I'm going to make a return. You know, rugby was my sport at the time, that I'm preparing for this big competition happening in a month's time. And like, that's my focus. I didn't even actually weigh up the possibility that it actually was torn. So, you know, went and had an MRI, because that was the first. I didn't have a doctor look at it because I think my knee was too swollen that they couldn't actually see it. And then I remember I came out of the MRI, and you're supposed to wait 3 days till you get the diagnostics and the results, right? So your doctor's going to call you. And I was like, I went to the imaging specialist straight away, knocked on the door, and he's like, pokes his head out. I'm like, so what have I done? He's
what
like,
is it?
No, you're gonna have to wait. Yeah, you're gonna have to wait till the doctor contacts you, and he's gonna read you the diagnosis. I'm like, no, but I can see it there. Like you know what's happened. So what's happened?
Yeah.
And he was like, it doesn't look good. And straight away I was like, fucking idiot, shouldn't have asked him. Shouldn't have asked him. Should have just waited. I would have had 3 more days of joy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I walked out, and I'm like, nah, he doesn't know shit. I'll wait for the doctor to give me the thing. So I walked out, and I remember thinking for 3 days, I'm like, that stupid radiologist actually thought I tore my ACL. What an idiot. And then of course I get the call from the doctor 3 days, and he's like, you know, full rupture of the ACL. But what I want to know, and you said this is very much you, is you wrote down 2 things. Like, okay, well, if it is a torn ACL, what am I going to do about it? And if it's not a torn ACL, what am I going to do about it? Talk me through, like, what did you actually write down that paper? Do you have it there?
Actually, have the book. Yeah. Have it here. Yeah, so it was a long list. But it was just like, I was just coming up with anything. And it was just like, because when you're training a lot, or like when you're focused a lot, like all of the time goes into training, preparing nutrition, trying to recover, or sleeping. Don't know what that is though. Yeah. And like trying to balance it with having a little bit of a social life. So like I have so many, like my personality is super big, and I want to do so many things. So I was like, okay, this is just an opportunity for me to work on myself, learning who I am again, because you lose yourself a lot when you're this competitor and people have decided who you are. You start thinking that about yourself also. Do you know what I mean? Like you can lose yourself, like the connection to yourself a little bit along the way. And I didn't give myself time to fix that. And I was, like I've always had so many interests, and all of a sudden it was only CrossFit that was in my life. And I was like, this needs to change now. And so I've always been a lot into music, and I used to play piano, I used to play drums, and I was like, I always learned, and I always wanted to learn to play guitar. So guitar was on top of the list, and I suck so bad. It's way harder than I expected. I was like, yeah, I can probably transfer like what I learned in piano and everything. Like, yeah, I have a good ear and everything, so it's gonna be no problem. I'm just like, I'm so bad at it. I'm still like a 5-year-old trying to hold the guitar. Like that's hard enough. So one of the things was guitar. And then there are a few things that I have not done yet. I'll admit that. One of the things were drawing up the roadmap on this wall in a bigger version, just like drawing it myself. It's still on the list though. And then it's just like, I want to get a diving certificate, like learn how to dive. But I have gone free diving one time, and that's insane. Have you been free diving?
I would love to. I really want to go free diving, and I really want to go spearfishing.
Spearfishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really
but
want
like you have to learn free diving before spearfishing, so you can hold your breath. It's like, like I just need to live in a country that I can actually do this. Like diving in Iceland is awesome, and and I went diving in the clearest water in the world, I think. Like, it's super clear, and it was insane. But it gets pretty creepy when you're just holding your breath and you're going like 10 meters down, and you can feel like the, what do you say, like the pressure in your ears, and you have to like be so calm. So like I was swimming under cliffs. Wow. And like you go down and it gets darker, and then you see like this small hole and you're like, am I even gonna fit there? And then you just see like a little bit light in the end, so you get like so much adrenaline from it. But yeah, so that's terrifying. On the list also. Yeah, terrifying, but it's terrifying, but it's so much fun at the same time, because you just have to learn to be calm, and this helps you also just in CrossFit or in training. Like, you just have to learn how to control your breath and just like, okay, this is the next step. Like, you can't think so much ahead. Yeah, I'm so crazy because I put everything into CrossFit. That's so, well, that's okay. Being an athlete, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that, you know, you almost didn't realize until the injury happened just how much you just gone all in on CrossFit. Yeah. And, you know, there's all these other things that you wanted to do that were really important to you. But what I want to ask you, you know, you said, you know, in the pursuit of being an athlete, you kind of lose track of who you are, or you get wrapped up in what everyone else is saying. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is just like, you get so focused on one thing, and I'm also that kind of person that when I do something, I'm just all in, and I just have tunnel vision for this one goal, and everything is around that one goal. And my goal, of course, is to win the CrossFit Games, and it's still my goal. But like, that tunnel vision doesn't help you reach the goal, because if you haven't got balance in your life, you're not going to reach it. Because like I say, like, okay, so you've probably seen people or you probably experienced this by yourself, but like you're snatching and it's a great snatching day and you're like, fuck,
never had one of those.
Okay.
I was kidding.
One day you will. One day. And you're just nailing every lift, and you're just like, oh, I'm going to PR today. And you feel it in you. And then you try the PR, but you start overthinking because you want it so bad. And that's what I think that has happened with my career, is that I wanted it so bad that I had forgotten everything that helped me be in the place where I am now. That's maybe not related to CrossFit, of just like how the balance was in my life before. And now it was only like CrossFit. Like, I was bailing on a lot of stuff that I didn't have to bail on, just because I was afraid it would affect my sleep. I was afraid that if I did that, I would be more tired in training. And like, I was starting to overthink so many things instead of just like being able to change caps during the day. So I would have my athlete cap on while I was training, and I would have my Sara cap on when I'm like cooking something good or eating, or like now playing guitar and watching something, like allowing myself to do that without feeling guilty of, I'm not doing everything I can today to be the best. And they expect this from me. They expect that I'm doing this. I'm getting weak. Like, you start making up stories in your head about what people expect from you. And you put pressure on you from that.
Two things that jump into my mind here. Firstly, how much of an influence do you think social media has on creating that perception that there's this expectation that everyone thinks I should be doing this, therefore I need to do it?
Yeah, I think that we get a lot of, I'm trying to translate this into English. Like, we get, I think, 300 times more of I don't know the English word for this, sorry. Like in the old days, you didn't have the phone to see what everybody else was doing, like the comparing and everything. So you get like 300 times more a day than versus a lifetime like 50 years ago of just like seeing what everybody else is doing and how good everybody else has it. Like, that makes you compare yourself more and makes you feel that you're not enough, makes you feel like everybody else has it so good and I'm just here. So I think that social media plays a very big part of like people thinking that they have to reach a specific standard, or just people doing anything they can to be famous because they think that being famous is so good. Like it's trying to find people's acceptance and approval has gone way too high in this world now.
So the second thing I was thinking about was, do you know who Johnny Wilkinson is, Sarah?
No.
Okay, so he was like, one of the best in a certain position rugby players for England. Anyway, he's come out after his career now, and he's basically he's really working with mental health. And one of the biggest things he talks about was basically exactly what you said, and reflecting on his career. He was like way down the end of the spectrum with regards to like how much he would obsess about his craft, to the point where, his whole career, basically nothing else happened in his life other than, train, compete and repeat, basically. And so, where he's at now, he's kind of reflecting on his whole year, on his whole career. And he was like, won the World Cup, one of the greatest players ever. And has basically said, if he could do it again, he wouldn't do that. And he would learn to be more present in other aspects of his life. But then obviously the first thing that a lot of people bounce back to that is they say, well, would you have been as good a player if you'd have not done what you did to be there? So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. If you're on this kind of journey, perhaps getting back to competing. Well, what do you think about that, firstly? And like, would you do it differently?
I think that I think you can reach your goal with having, like you say, like you can be so tunnel visioned and just like this is like, people can get their self-esteem from knowing that they put everything else to the side and they've only been in, and then they feel like I deserve to win this because everything, like I've sacrificed so many things. Like you can get self-esteem from there, or you can just like relearn how you look at things. And like, what is it, like what I've been trying to put in mind, like training now, is just like, what do I have to do today in training that can make me better? And am I getting better? Versus before, I would be like, oh, I had 2 bad training sessions, I'm gonna add a third one so I can feel good when I go to sleep tonight, because then I did everything I could have done today. And then that third training session has an effect on my emotions the next day, because I get stressed because I'm more tired than I was before. You start sacrificing things that don't need to be sacrificed because you want it so bad. So I think that you can reach your goal with having those balances in your life, because I think it's going to give you a much better and more fun experience, which is going to make you last longer in what you're doing.
What triggered you to start thinking about this a little bit differently and reflecting on this whole thing and realizing this is what I was doing and this is how I want to do it now?
I think it was just like, I mean, I've been a bit of a butterfly in this sport, and I've had different coaches, and it's like I'm still finding my recipe, and I think it was just that of just like, I'm just not the person that can settle down like Catherine. She just lives in Boston with her coach and she's just happy there. Like, that's just not me. I want to experience so many things in my life, and I feel if I'm not allowing myself to be the butterfly that I am, how can I turn from being a caterpillar into a butterfly? Do you know what I mean? Like we're just all so different in how we experience things. And like my dream before I started CrossFit was to travel the world and work on different places, like just get a job at a hotel and just be like work somewhere in different places and just travel. And that's what I see with CrossFit now. It's like, why am I not using what I can? And like I can train around the world. And I mean, of course, there's a high time of the season where I would just stay in training think tank. But why am I not using what I can use and living the life that I wanted to live, just just by training somewhere else instead of finding a hotel and being a servant there or something? So like, I think that when you like, this was just a trigger of when I got injured, was just like, who am I and what makes me actually happy except for training? Like what, like I love training and I love love training with people and like the atmosphere that's around it. You have music and you're just pushing yourself, and it's amazing, but you need something more also. And that's something that I had to find when I got injured, was like, what else makes me happy? What do I want to do when I start training again? What kind of like, where do I want to live? What are my interests? Because I have to live somewhere where I can maintain those interests and hobbies. So yeah, I think it was just the injury that, I mean, I think what triggers it also is just like when you feel empty and you're not getting as much happiness from what you're doing, is then you've gone over the line of like overtraining or doing too much of something. Am I talking in circles?
No, absolutely.
No, okay.
I mean, it's funny. I'm thinking about, have you watched Michael Jordan's The Last Dance documentary?
I have watched it probably around 6 times.
Well, okay. What made you watch that 6 times?
I just like, I love him and his mindset and how he is, and it's just so real how it is. Like, I don't know, the scene when he went back to basketball and they won, and he's just lying on the floor with the trophy because his dad died, and I was just like, that scene just fires me up, because I'm just like, wow.
So when you look at Michael Jordan's career, would you say he's someone that had balance, or do you think he was, because I think he depicts the image that he was like, you know, he was this super competitive dude. All he thought about all the time was winning in every aspect of life. But I would argue that he had fulfillment in doing it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Like, I think that he was balancing his life well. Like, he was the king. He was filming while he was training, and he got guys to like come and train with him because he was filming and he had to be at a specific place. So it's just like, I think that he knew exactly where he was going, and he knew what he had to do to like keep his career on high end by having something else also. But
so do you have an idea when the knee heals up a bit more and you're like, you know, training takes a bit more of a priority and you probably start training more frequently in a day, do you have a rough idea of what your life is going to look like, you know, post ACL Sara versus pre ACL Sara?
Like, I have a lot of opportunities this year, and I mean, I just have to remind myself, like, okay, the main thing in my life now is just like, number 1, 2022 games. I want to be top 10 at 2022 games. Like, then it's 1.5 years since I had my surgery, and I think it's just a realistic goal. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to start competing again and trusting my body. It's going to be hard to split jerk again, because like, this happened in a moment that it shouldn't happen in. So like, anything can happen, and it's just trusting your body again. That's going to be the biggest, I think the biggest wall that I have to climb over. And then I just have to remind myself of like, when I'm starting again, how am I balancing my life to my competitive life, and what timeline do I have to actually give myself 50% versus giving the athlete 90% and myself 10%. So it's like, it depends on the time of the year, and I think when it's go time, like, I'll just be at a training camp at Training Think Tank and my mind is just there. But before that, like, I have to charge my batteries and I have to be happy what I've done until then. Do you know what I mean?
So I think, you know, you're looking at your season and adjusting, you know, which hat you're wearing at which point of year. And, you know, I think exactly. your previous experience was that you were just all in on the competing all year round. So how much do you think that took away from when it actually came to competition time, when you needed to be at your absolute best? You know, do you think you were at your absolute best, or do you think, you know, that overcommitment and overdoing it perhaps in a year took away from your ability to be your best? What do you think?
I think that my mindset on the games, on the CrossFit Games, is so different than in every other competition. And that's just something that I've been working on now. It's like, why do I look at the games as a different competition? Like, I can show up in Dubai and I'm just like, hey, I own this place, I'm gonna fucking crush this. And then I show up at the games and I'm just like I get little and I'm just like, I don't deserve to be here. All the girls here have a background. I don't have a sports background. I'm just lucky that I'm here. I'm this, I'm bad at running, I'm bad at this. Like, I'm reminding myself how much I'm lacking versus how much or how freaking good I am. Do you know what I mean? And the difference in that mindset is what gives me the outcome that I have received. I don't know if competing the whole year and everything like that has it probably has a little bit of an effect, but I think that my mindset on the CrossFit Games and then stress and like I said with the snatch earlier, like, you want something so much. In 2015, I didn't even dream to be on the podium. Like, it was way too high of a goal, and I was just like, my lifetime goal was just to make it to the games one time, and I made it. And then I was in first place the whole time, and I was just like, my expectations went so high, and then I lost it. And after I lost it, it's like my expectations are even higher now for every CrossFit Games, because I want to show that I can. And then, like, the pressure that I put on myself is just like 100 times more than what I do in every other competition, because the games is the only competition that matters. So, like, you can compete in Dubai and you think, it's okay, it's not the CrossFit Games. But then when you're at the CrossFit Games, you mess something up, and that's like high in my books of messing something little up and just being like yeah, everywhere. So, like, as soon as you mess something up there, you just, like, I go straight into, I knew I would fuck this up, I knew this would happen, I'm not supposed to be able to win this competition, I'm not supposed to be as good as the other girls, you're not an athlete, you're just lucky. Like, it's just like you go into this crazy mindset, and that's what I've experienced for the last years. It's just like, I'm putting so much pressure on me in that one competition. Like, for example, last year I competed the Rogue Invitationals, and I just, like, there was no hesitation that I was not going to try to win it. Well, I started the games, and the first thing that comes to my mind was like, there's no chance I can make it to the top 5. And like, I had already made the decision. So what I've been looking into is just like, how can I change my mindset? How can I work on this mindset of actually looking at the games the same way that I look at every other competition?
How did you come to the realization that this was something that you were doing? How did you reflect and realize that the way you were thinking about the games was different? Or did you just always know that there was something different?
I always knew. Yeah, I always knew, but I just had no idea how I should deal with it. And like, before the CrossFit Games 2017, I think I wrote down all the things that I was afraid of and was replying to myself so it wouldn't happen. But still, as soon as I show up at the competition, it's just like your head just goes somewhere else. You just lose focus. You're thinking too much about things that don't matter. You're starting to make excuses. You're afraid of failing, or that's what I was. I was just so afraid of failing, and that fear of failing led to me performing badly because I had already made excuse. So I wasn't failing because I had that excuse. And I would come off the floor and I would be like, who is this? Like, what? Like, I would be in training and I would be a way different athlete. But then I go on the floor at the CrossFit Games and I'm just like, did I really break up 9 thrusters or something like that? Like, it's just like, you go into a complete, just like, yeah, you lose focus and you're just overthinking. And that's just something that I've been trying to figure out, of like, how do I deal with this? And what I've learned in this recovery time is just like, okay, I'm just a person that has been chosen in this world to deal with that injury and to deal with how this mindset works and how we can come over it. Like, how can I pass this? Because there's going to be so many girls, so many athletes they're going to experience the same thing. And I'm just a leader in it. Like, and I just have to learn how to deal with it. And I accept that.
But I think that's so true. I think it's something that almost every athlete at some point in their journey experiences. But I think a lot of athletes don't want to talk about it because I think it's, you know, a lot of people are afraid of vulnerability and think they're going to be judged, or, you know, people are going to change their opinions of them because they admitted they actually have, you know, what would basically be like performance anxiety.
They're actually human. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we have performance anxiety in like so many other aspects of life all the time. It's just for some reason when it's an athlete on the competition floor, we all think it's something different.
Yeah,
or something
we always
worse
think
than it
that,
is.
Yeah, and you always want to be the robot. Like that's how I was coached before. Like, don't show emotions, don't show this, and I would be inside like, oh fuck, I really need to cry now or something. And so it's been like a crazy journey, but like I just realized that when I was injured, like I've been watching so many Kobe Bryant videos, and he's just my biggest motivation. And he just had something that was way bigger than just being a great athlete. And he made a difference in the world. And he made, like, what he's done with the Mamba mindset and everything. It's amazing. And I just thought there, like, wow, maybe my reason for all of this is just I'm strong enough to overcome it, to show people that it's possible. And that's how I'm trying to motivate myself, at least. I'm looking at it. It's just like I get so many obstacles and I can overcome all of them. Like how my career started was that I broke my wrist. After I broke my wrist, I got disqualified in the regionals. Next year, I had no idea what handstand walk was and that I had to do max meters. Like it was always a new wall for 3 years. In 2015, I was just like, I've overcome all of this. I'm going to crush it. And I did. And now I think this is just the next period of that. And this has been way harder, which means that I'm going to receive so much more, or at least I hope.
I think it's an amazing mindset for you to be excited about everything that's happened and the person you're going to become.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hate being a person that's afraid of things. And that's a little bit where I was just like, oh, fear of this. I'm not going to do this because this could happen. Well, before I would take everything as a challenge. And by getting injured now, I don't remember, like, this is such a good moment. I was just feeling sorry for myself in the morning. I couldn't bike higher than 70 RPMs for 20 minutes or something like that. And I was just like, how the hell am I going to get back into shape? And how am I going to have a comeback? I don't believe it. And I was like, okay, I need motivation. And then I watched the Kobe Bryant video and I was just like, my meaning in this world. I was just like, maybe I am the one that can show everybody that like this is possible, and that like I'm just building the road to this. Do you know what I mean? Or I'm at least hoping that that's my meaning.
So, okay, you've identified that when you get to CrossFit Games, when you get to CrossFit Games again, you are going to think about things a little bit differently. But obviously, it's really easy to say, all right, well, just don't focus on failing, Sarah. Like, change it up from what you did last time.
It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
So what are you doing now, maybe on a daily or a weekly basis, to cultivate a change in your mindset that, you know, in the most stressful environment, which is the CrossFit Games, how are you gonna, you know that you're going to be successful? What are you doing?
I think that like this is pretty deep, but I think that how my childhood was that I didn't do any sports. I didn't do anything because I was so afraid. And I think that's what comes up as soon as I go to the CrossFit Games. I feel the same feeling of like, I don't belong here. I'm not this. Like, I go into how I was when I was younger and why I didn't do stuff when I was younger as soon as I'm at the CrossFit Games. And I think that if I can work on that fear of why I was like that when I was younger, and I can get more of like confidence in everything that I'm doing now, and just trusting myself. So I think that self-esteem is one of the biggest things in performance. If you have good self-esteem, you are pretty solid. Of like, what's been lacking for me is that I don't see myself like maybe other people see me, or I feel that I'm missing so many pieces. Well, maybe Max sees me as an athlete that could win the CrossFit Games, but I don't see it because I'm lacking this and I'm lacking this and I'm lacking this. So having a group of people that believe in you is one of the things. Preparing yourself to have those thoughts and what you're going to do about it and why they're coming up, like reminding yourself like, this is only nerves. My mind is protecting me. Thank you, mind, for trying to protect me. You don't have to protect me. It's just a workout. Like reminding yourself of those basic things of just like, yeah, of almost when you get triggered, you have the tools to untrigger yourself. But I have no idea if this is the recipe or not, but I'm still spiking and thinking about everything. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, and I think it all starts with awareness. So like you're now able to be aware when thoughts are coming into your head.
Coming in. Yeah.
And then, you know, maybe you're not sure entirely what to do about those thoughts just yet, but it's about recognizing.
Yeah. And I'm also working with a mental performance coach now that's helping me a lot with this stuff. So yeah, she's helping me with this, and I'm sure that we will find a way to deal with the thing between the ears at the CrossFit Games.
And like, are there daily practices that you're doing? Are you journaling? Are you meditating? Are you writing thoughts down? Do you have someone who you can like call and speak to when?
Yeah. So we have just a session one time a week, and we just it's a variation of what we're doing. So like in the injury, we were focusing a lot on just me versus the athlete me, while now we're going more into like performance and what we have to do to reach a specific level again, and the fear of failure and the fear of injury, re-injuring yourself. And I also just have a lot of interest in this. So I was doing my assignment about burnout and how burnout can go into injury, or like can have a connection with injury. So yeah, I have a few things that I put on the side that I need to do for myself.
Because are you not studying something in psychology at the moment?
I'm studying just the basic in psychology. So I had one of my models this year was sports psychology. Perfect timing.
Perfect.
Yeah. If only I'd studied it a year ago, I wouldn't have got injured, you know, but everything happens for a reason.
And I also think that even if you just studied it, it would have not sunk in to the extent it has now, because you've gone through it.
Yeah, 100%.
So where are you at now with your rehab? How far post ACL reconstruction?
So I am at 13th week now. So next Monday I have finished 13 weeks and I'm starting 14th week. So yeah.
And what's the time frame on an ACL these days? You know, I know back in the day they were saying like 4 months and you could be back, and then it turned to 6 months, and then it was a year minimum. Obviously everyone's different, and I know you're progressing really fast, but what is the timeline looking like?
We are expecting me to be training normally again 6 months.
Nice.
So I'm slowly adding stuff now. Like Monday I got my first drill of putting like impact on the foot. So I'm learning how to run again and trusting, and you probably experienced it. It's just like the knee is so unattached to you. Do you know what I mean? Like you
it's
just
like all of a sudden it's like a floppy sock.
Yeah, it's like a floppy sock. That's the perfect. As soon as you get a little bit tired, it's just like you can just tell your head of like, hey, keep on working, like stop. But the knee it has its own brain almost for now. But so it's just slowly now like adding stuff, and I'm surprising myself a lot of like how freaking strong I still am. Like I haven't lifted for about 18 weeks now. And I was deadlifting yesterday and I was just so powerful, and it was just a big surprise of like how much you can actually maintain.
So what's your training look like? You know, obviously there's a period of time where you're actually immobilized, but you know, what have you actually done, do you think, that's contributed to you being able to go back into weight training and still be pretty strong?
I mean, I've been doing freaking rehab for about 3 hours a day, and then an hour to 2 hours of like upper body and then cardio. So it's been like I've been training a lot, but just in a different way. I mean, 3 hours of rehab is not nearly as close to just like having a snatch session or something like that. But it's like you're learning so much about new muscles that you didn't know you had. That's my experience of just like, wow, so this is what it feels like deadlifting with my glutes and not my back. It's just like, oh, okay. But I needed, like I've always been super flexible and just having a hard time like creating tension and everything. And now it's just like I was deadlifting yesterday, and my first pull has always been my hardest pull because I can't find tension. And as soon as I have weight loaded, I find tension. So yesterday was the first time that I could actually feel tension before I pulled. And I was like, this is weird. and I was training with BK, and I was like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Like, he was like, yeah, how freaking easy was that? I was like, yeah, right? It was like, it was such a surprise of like, I was expecting myself to be at a much worse place than I am because it's been such a long time. And this is also showing me of like how freaking important it is to take time off after CrossFit Games, and that you're not going to lose a lot.
And what do you attribute, you know, to you suddenly being able to find tension and feel muscles working that you never felt before? Like, what were you doing in that rehab journey that's maybe contributed to that happening?
So how I learned to move was just through YouTube, because I didn't have a coach or anything my first 3 years or something. Like I've always been that person that just does things myself. Like I can just do it. So I got a tattoo yesterday, and I had drawn everything up. I knew exactly what I wanted. And he was like, okay, I'm going to draw this up on my iPad. And I was just like, oh, hand it to me. I'll just do this. And then he printed it out and I cut it up, and he's like, can I just do something? Or have you always been like, do you just do everything by yourself? I was like, yeah, when you say it like that, oops.
You didn't take the tattoo gun off him and start inking your own.
No, he got to do the tattoo part for this time, but maybe next time I'll do it. But like that's how I was when I was training also in the beginning, and I didn't know anything. So I was just like, I'll do it by myself, and I'm learning by myself. And like it wasn't intentional of doing it, but I just had like I live in a small town where CrossFit wasn't like big at that time, and so it was the only way for me at that time. And I was working at a hotel gym, and I had to learn everything by myself without having any of the CrossFit things. So I think that I learned a lot of bad patterns in my basic movement patterns when I was starting, and I got the opportunity now in this rehab of relearning everything and like strengthening stuff that I didn't give myself time to strengthen, like my ankles, for example. I could run and I could twist my ankle, and like it could touch the ground, and I could still just keep on running because I'm just that flexible, like, which leads to like you're lifting ton of weight, and if you don't have the strength and to stabilize your ankle, like how much can you actually improve? And I used to be very quad dominant, and now hopefully my glutes are taking over. I didn't have hamstrings. Finally, I have hamstrings. So it's like these, what do you say? Like the muscle, like the balance in the muscles, or the using the muscles is what I am working on now. And then I have to maintain.
Then like we're only 3 months in the journey, and I feel like you're a completely different person to when we last spoke.
Yeah.
In so many areas. I mean, we already talked about like the mindset piece, and I'm sure there's way more as well that we haven't even talked about. Like, you know, your training journey and how different that's been for you, and all the realizations. I'm actually just really excited. I can't wait to see you get back out there and see
I can't wait to go back out there.
The new Sara's like. What else are you doing outside of training right now? I feel like you're always doing other things. Like, you're studying, You're always on the move. You're driving with amazing sunsets and doing all sorts of weird shit. Like, what does your day look like?
My day is, I have a lot of stuff in my car because I don't plan the whole day. I just go with the flow a little bit. Like, training is my priority, and I can train wherever. So like if my friends are an hour away from me or something and they want to go out to eat, I just take my stuff with me. I train close to them and then I go with them. Like, it's just, my priority is, I have 3 sessions a day now, and one is like a cardio session with rehab. The second one is rehab again with lifting, and the third one is like gymnastics, and then maybe zone 2 training or something like that. So I have 3 sessions a day. I always start my day with the first session, and then it's more just like, hey BK, where are you training today? I'm gonna join you. Or I have a photo shoot, or I'm gonna finish training and then I'm gonna go to the office and I'm gonna practice the guitar. It's just, I have these goals that I want to achieve. So every day is just like, did I do something of this today? And if I did, perfect.
And I feel like I've seen, you know, via your Instagram stories, all of those things, except I haven't seen any guitar videos.
You don't want to see guitar videos yet.
Where are we at? What song are we learning at the moment?
We're like, no comment.
We're just learning to hold the guitar at the moment, are we?
Yeah, we're just freaking learning the grips and moving from the grips still.
Who's your favorite YouTube guitar teacher?
So I actually just was lucky enough that Snorri, my manager, is super good on playing guitar. So I think I've seen a video of him.
He's epic.
Yeah, he is insane. So I just filmed him teaching me, and then I've written down like 3rd chord, 2nd string, like this is A mol, this is B, like, so C, A mol, E, and yeah. So I just have that note in front of me. I'm thinking of where it is, if I should show you it. Do you want to see it?
Yes, I do want to see it.
Okay.
Listeners, I'm going to explain what I'm seeing here on this video.
But the odds that I won't find it are very high, just telling you. Damn it.
Come on, Sarah. No, can't find it.
I'm not giving up quite yet.
I feel like, okay, so listeners, just so you know, I am also on a guitar journey. I think I'm I think it must be like a year and a half into it. I feel like I can confidently say that I've done better than you in my explanation of guitar. I'll give you CrossFit, I'll give you strength conditioning, but I'll take the guitar crown. Yeah,
you deserve it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. For now.
Yeah.
So just so you know, I have my own little book of this is exactly how mine started as well. Which actually, now I look at it, I'm like, that's not even guitar language at all. But it was just my own language. For me,
it was just like, it was my own language. And I want to learn to play the guitar in my own way, like with like the music here. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I can like pick up songs and everything like that. Like I can hear a song and I'm like, oh, it's this, it's A mol, it's this. So that's why I made this perfect note that is at Snorri's office now, because I played the guitar last time there.
Okay, so
I'm everywhere,
in the meantime, in between everything else you've been doing at the moment, have you been watching any of the CrossFit? Like, are you a fan girl even though you're not competing? And if you are, what's that been like? Not being able to be out there and watching your friends and your competitors be a part of it.
Yeah, I watched the last regionals, and I didn't watch BK because it was just, everything was online. And like I've been trying to be a part of everything, but I mean, it's super hard. And so I watched the West Coast Classic, and I was just like thinking the whole time of like, I would break it up like that. I would do this, this here, Like I was making my game plan, and I was like guessing what they would do, and I mean, it's fun there, but it's so hard afterwards. It's just like, it's going to be about 3 more months until I'll be able to test that out. And great. So I think it's so important that you will be able to handle seeing everybody else doing it, because it just gives you hunger of like how much you miss it, instead of being in denial, like I don't want to watch anything, I don't want to support anything, and like I'm still trying to make it to the games and just going to watch and support. So I am fangirling, I'll admit that.
I think it's important though, because I mean, I think some, like you said, some people will avoid it in the hope that it won't trigger them or make them think about things they don't want to think about, but you're actually just accepting and doing it.
Yeah, like I don't understand the fear of like being triggered by something that you love. Like it's not like it's the end of the world now being injured. It's just a challenge, and it's just a period of time, and it's gonna be over, and I'm gonna look back to this year and be like, fuck, I remember when I felt like that. Damn, it's good to be here now, or something like that. Like you have to remind yourself of that, of like it's the long game, not just what's now. And if you can't deal with watching somebody else, how are you going to deal with going back on that floor and not knowing where anybody stands or what the standard is almost?
Nice. Right. Well, Sara, big questions coming up then. What is the future looking like? You know, in our last podcast, you talked about getting over to Training Think Tank in Atlanta. Is that still something that's on the cards? Is that something you want to do?
Yeah, 100%. And I think when the season starts, I'm going to spend most of my time there. Like I want to be going back and forth, and I didn't want to move completely because I had Morley, and now he's not here. So it's going to be not as hard to leave. I'll admit that.
And what about your dream of just traveling the world and visiting these different places and doing these other things? You know, if you're a long way out from the season, is that something you want to start to do as well? Or maybe you'll travel around the US? What's it looking like?
Yeah, like so here's my bucket list. There's a lot of places here, you know? I've written a lot of stuff down.
Did Hong Kong make your list, Sara?
Yeah, of course it is on the list. I'm just waiting for an invite, you know?
Hey, it's an open invite. I said that last time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's good we're recording this, so I can use this on you. Exactly. Yeah, so like I would say that the season starts around January. Like then we start to prepare for the Open, and then like semifinal or quarterfinals, semifinals, and then, well, if they're gonna have it the same way as this year, and then we're going to the games in August. And I would say from August until December would be like 4 months of course training and everything, but I can still not be just 90% an athlete. Like I'm still 50% Sara and doing what I love. And I want to also balance when I start those training camps and those training seasons of like Thursdays and Sundays, what hobby did I do today? What did I do that's gonna charge my battery for training and that's gonna make me excited to go training the next day? Was it doing mobility for 3 hours in the gym on Thursday and then showing up on Friday and having to crush it? Or was it just going to the beach and surf or something? Like what balance do I have, and what's gonna help me not going into that overload again?
Nice. So, and something obviously Training Think Tank have done, you know, and I love all the guys there and spent a lot of time with that crew. But I mean, in the last year, you know, they've really built a pretty special environment with, you know, some really good level athletes and in amongst, and I feel like that's probably something quite, I think you've been in and amongst environments, of course, over your years, but, you know, I feel like they've got something quite special there. How excited are you about being a part of that?
So excited. It was it was hard watching West Coast Classic, but it was harder watching them training together before everything and seeing the workouts and seeing them going against each other. And I was just like, I can't wait to be a part of that group. Like, I can't wait. Like, because how I have always been since I started is that I train so much by myself. And what I noticed last year was just like, okay, I need to be under more pressure when I'm training, and I need to train with a group of people. I need to be somewhere at a specific time, and like you know, I'm such a butterfly, and and I can control my time a lot myself, and I'm not allowed to be able to do it because then I'll just train at midnight because that's what I love. So like I need that that structure and that group of people, and that's something that I'm gonna get next year, hopefully.
That's so awesome. I'm so excited to see you over there.
Are you joining us in a training camp, or is
I'd
that
love
what you're
to.
saying?
It's so, honestly, when I think about traveling right now, I can't even wrap my head around it. I haven't been out of the country in
No, it's crazy.
what, yeah, like 20, how long has it been? A year and a half. Yeah, it's been so
Half,
long.
yeah.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. And I mean, like, you know, and you know, Ant, who's preparing for the games, like it was such an amazing, it was just the perfect place to be at the time when we were last at the games, with the environment and, you know, not being in our normal environment of having to work and do all that stuff. So I think we both said that if we could make it happen, we're definitely going to go back.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And it'll be awesome.
That would be so cool. Yeah. Next year, 2022.
2022. All right, Sara. Well, that was great. And thank you for sharing all of that.
Pleasure was all mine.
I'm so fired up, honestly, to maybe even more fired up than you are to see you get back to it.
No, that's not possible.
Because, you know, genuinely coming into this episode, you know, I hadn't asked you any of these questions beforehand. And so you never really know how someone's going to handle like adversity, not just an injury, but just adversity in general, because you've had more than just an injury. And I really wasn't sure like what you were going to say. And, you know, I was fully ready for you to say, Ed, I'm actually not going to talk about this ever again. And I'm going to take up guitar. But
well, if I would have seen a hidden skill or hidden talent in that guitar, I would maybe say that, but I think I'll stick to CrossFit.
And you know, and I'm really happy you are. I think everyone listening is going to be, you know, super fired up after hearing this episode, and you know, we're going to keep a special eye on you and to see the new set, to see Sara 2.0 out there doing her thing. It's going to be cool to watch.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back out there.
Awesome. Well, I don't probably need to direct people to your Instagram account. I'm sure they're following you already. But if someone wanted to find out more about you, Sara, and what you're doing, where could they go?
Instagram is my biggest source. I think it's Sara Sigmunsdottir.
I will put it in the show notes, but it's embarrassing you have to go to that if you haven't followed already. Yeah. Okay, Sara. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you will most definitely be on the podcast again at some time in the future. And good luck with this season. Yeah, we should have this like a yearly thing, you know. We should have it as a yearly thing. Yeah. Yeah. Just no more ACLs in the meantime. No. Next podcast will be a different one. No injuries there. Knock on wood. All right, Sara, you have a lovely day. Thank you. You too.